Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. The attempts to try to rehabilitate Joy Reid's broken image by these bootlicks is underway. There's a handful of the same old usual suspects. These are individuals who are also some of the white media's Negro cable cast-offs. And here they are seeing what happened to her. And they're hoping that whatever little sympathy she might be able to get, phony sympathy at that, they're hoping that maybe some of this will rub off on them. So a few of the usual suspects are trying to see if they can go ahead and pretty up her image, go ahead and try to clean this one up, among them being Jemele Hill, who took a few minutes away from her constant blackmail bashing to get on the let's sympathize with Joy Reid train. But her video that she posted, it was nothing at all. It was basically nothing but rambling, ranting, meandering. It was a confused, diseased mind desperately hoping for a coherent thought and failing to find one. Now, I'm not going to punish you by having you listen to the whole thing because there was nothing to be said. Then again, she never actually had anything intelligent to say in her entire career. Why would she start now? The pathetic attempts by the bought and paid for bootlicks to clean up the disgraceful fall of Joy Reid has commenced. These people can't persuade anyone. That's because they don't have credibility with anybody.
Black people, black audiences over-index on entertainment.
Yes, Jemele, black audiences do over-index on entertainment. And you want to know why? That's because they've been conditioned to. For decades, they've been conditioned by professional shuck and jive artists like you, lowbrow sellouts who make everything into a joke or try to make everything into some stupid beef, or who otherwise gear their delivery and presentation to make everything appeal to the lowest common denominator. This is how you try to make people infantilized in their mentality. That's what people like Joy Reid do and people like Jemele Hill. That's why when I began this work over 15 years ago, I came up with that phrase that the mission of the black media is to take control of the social and political discourse within the black community, and secondly, to elevate the debate. Elevate the debate. That means smarten our people up. Because what passed for black political discourse 15 plus years ago was a toilet. It was a toilet because of people like Jemele Hill, Roland Martin, Don Lemon, and other bootlicks who the white media had on a leash. Black political discourse was what they made of it. And they made it into a toilet. They made it into a sewer. The reason that we're talking about tangibles and not twerking is because of the black media, not because of Jemele Hill, not because of the breakfast schlubs, not because of Don Lemonade, not because of Roland Martin. It's because of us. The reason why politicians are being taught to take us and our demands seriously is because of us, not because of Joy Reid. You were part of that gang of bootlicks, Jemele, who dumbed down black audiences, and we made it our mission to smarten them back up again over your opposition and your deliberate aggressive actions against us. We started teaching black people to take an interest in politics, and that's why you've had clowns like Roly-Poly and others trying to slither into this space. It's because that old dead shuck and jive bullcrap that you guys trafficked in, that mess ain't gonna fly. The reign of the white media bootlicks has been brought to an end, and we're the ones who killed it. We're the ones who made it where the old standard is now being brought back, a standard of excellence, a standard of intelligence. When you come and talk to black people now, you can't show up with any of that weed-smoking babbling like Jemele Hill's doing. You can't just show up and sit there and just blather. You got to have something intelligent to say. Why? Because there's black people out here who have raised the bar that the bootlicks like you, Jemele Hill, put on the ground.
You know what? Let me go back. You know what the number one source of news is for 18 to 34-year-olds black audience? It's the Shade Room. The Shade Room has almost 30 million followers on Instagram. That is where people are getting their news.
Did she say the Shade Room? Seriously? The Shade Room is where black people in the key demo get their news and views from? You know, if the Shade Room is the go-to spot for young black people's news, why is it that when Kamala Harris went to them, her campaign failed so badly? If they got all of this influence, all this stroke, all this reach. This is Mammy Jemele trying to give a shout out to other people in bootlick media, trying to big them up. That's all this is. Well, Jemele, as Kendrick Lamar told you, you can't fake influence. The Shade Room belongs in the same category as World Star Hip Hop and Hood Clips. They're just shuck and jive bullcrap, which explains why you like them so much, Jemele. Places like the Shade Room may have lots of views, but their audience is useless because those creeps just sit on the couch full time smoking a joint. They don't get off their butts for anything, especially not even to vote. Yeah, you can go ahead and talk to those morons, but they're not good for anything. They're not going to do anything. But then again, why would they? When Jemele Hill talks about black people over-indexing on entertainment, that also includes sports too, Jemele. See, that's the reason why I make it a point not to have anything to do with any of that stuff. Why would I be paying attention to sports at all? Why the hell would I watch anything like ESPN, especially when they employ bootlicks like Jemele Hill and Steven from Django, Steven Smith. So when she talks about black people over-indexing on entertainment, yeah, she's talking about herself.
When Trump's political career really started going, it was black journalists who immediately called him out. It was black journalists that surfaced the racial allegations that were against him in housing in New York, or the ad that he took out about the Central Park Five in the New York Times calling for their execution. Now that he's in this position, you see the capitulation that overall media is doing. And as somebody who dedicated their career to this profession, this is, disheartening doesn't even begin to cover it. This is heartbreaking to see, because that's not what journalists do. It's like, we're supposed to be disruptors. We're supposed to, as we used to say in journalism school, our job is to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. That's what we're supposed to do.
She's actually talking about being a disruptor. Gee, Jemele, is that what you were doing while black people, especially young black people, were making demands during the Obama years? They were out in the streets fighting for their survival, and Obama and his administration were ignoring them, or worse, taking the side of the bad guys? How about during the Biden years, when you had black people still making demands, but Biden was going to court siding with the police, and he was floating COVID money to these police departments? Were you being a disruptor then? Was Joy Reid? Hey, Jemele, did you and the rest of the bootlicks disrupt the Democrats' constant attempts to dismiss and downplay our issues? Or did you play right along with them and act as their cheerleader? See, when you're a disruptor, that means you cause problems no matter who is in office. Whining about the orange man means nothing when Democrats aren't responding to black people's needs either. And worse, in many cases, you got Democrat politicians who use their offices to harm black people. And you talk about bend the knee, you got on both knees for the Democrats. You praise Kamala Harris merely for existing. Black people told you what was wrong with her, and instead of demanding that she repent for her sins and own up to it and tell us what she's going to do to punish the thugs in blue, instead you took her side. You lied and claimed that she was pure as the wind-driven snow, and that all the criticism of her was just coming from Russian bots. And you said that she was the second coming. Now, how is that any different than the lies that the white right tells about Trump? All of this deification of a politician simply because you think you're going to benefit personally from it. What did you think was going to happen, Jemele? Did you think that you were going to get yourself a job in a White House communications office? Yeah, that's what you and Angela Rye with lettuce and tomatoes on the side, and the rest of these bootlicks like Roland Martin, that's all the butt kissing that you were doing was meant to achieve. It was meant to get you a White House job. Well, it looks like there was only room for 1 or 2 Negroes in there, so Simone Mamie Sanders got the job. And you notice that when she left, they didn't hire you, didn't hire Roland Martin. They got no plans for any of you. But then again, kissing the white supremacist behinds is the only job you actually got, so you had to continue it no matter what. We tell these bootlicks like Jemele Hill and Joy Reid that the Democrats have to do things for black people if they want to win office, and then you got Joy Reid and Roland Martin and all the rest of them saying, no, it's not about black people, this is about democracy. These are the fools who Jemele Hill tells us are supposed to be speaking up for black people, and they're supposed to be presenting black people's issues in the public arena? People who say that black people need to just pipe down. It's about democracy. We can't be out here just talking about black people. That's divisive. We can't vote for black people's interests. We have to vote for democracy. So they simultaneously claim to be for black people. And at the same time, when you mention black people, they say, well, it can't be about us. It's got to be about America. It's got to be about democracy. Democracy that we have never had for a single moment in this country. That's why Wendell Pierce made me want to puke when he was saying that doing things for everybody else, why, that's actually doing things for black people. Well, she does have a plan for black men. It's a plan for everybody. That means black men are included too. The same Orwellian doublespeak that the white right does when they push anti-black laws and claim that it's colorblind or race neutral, kissing the Democrats' behinds and telling us to vote for nothing, and attacking black people who have the nerve to actually demand something for their vote. This is supposed to be a disruptor? What the hell are they disrupting? They're not disrupting anything. It's like Noam Chomsky said, it's the highest form of propaganda when something presents itself as opposition or disruption, when in reality, it's actually support.
I noticed that as soon, as all of this started, that a lot of you were like, You know, why can't we just start our own? Why don't we just do our own? Hey, look, I'm all down for that. And I want to address that part of it, though. Like, why can't Black media have its own?
Oh, and by the way, before I go any farther, I think it does need to be said, Jemele Hill is supposed to be doing some sort of little video statement about what happened to Joy Reid. She only mentioned Joy Reid like once, maybe twice. She didn't really have much to say about Joy Reid at all. Most of it was about herself. What a surprise. But she asks, why can't Black people have our own? And then she brings up Roly-Poly Martin's Broom Closet podcast, which, by the way, is more the same crap that MSNBC was doing. If Jemele Hill means why don't we have a large-scale broadcast media outlet that operates in our interest, well, that's largely because paid tools like Joy Reid, Jemele Hill, Roland Martin, Don Lemonade, and others have spent decades trying to get us to watch white-owned media outlets. That's what they fought hard, tooth and nail, to condition us to do. And come to find out, Roland Martin not only was getting money during the Trump years from the government, he was also getting money from Kamala Harris's campaign too. If Black people are to have some sort of meaningful presence in established media, we certainly can't do it by bringing these bootlicks like Roland Martin with us. Roly-Poly's just trying to do the same thing that BET and TV None and others did, and that is talk Black for about 5 or 6 seconds. It's all totally phony as you try to aggregate some Black viewers as a way to get white advertiser money. They do the same grift over and over again. You start off telling Black people, you know what, none of these media outlets are out here presenting dignified Black people. We need to have some intelligent discourse. And Black folks say, yeah, we need some Black folks who are on TV and they're going to actually be speaking honorably about us. They're going to present media that honors us. And Black folks say, yeah, and that's why you need to go ahead and watch some sitcoms and some shuck and jive nonsense. And oh, by the way, don't turn off the TV during the commercials. They tell us that they're operating in our interests. Come watch them. And then when Black people do that, they push nothing but narratives and propaganda meant to mislead us or to distract us or waste our time. They push agendas by people outside the community, and most of them are directly detrimental to us. Jemele Hill actually did mention Black News Channel, talking about how she knew people who worked there. Apparently these were her buddies. Well, I guess that's the reason why they were doing nothing but pushing immigrant issues, LGBT issues, feminist issues, anything but Black issues. And that's what Roly-Poly does. When these bootlicks are talking to Black people, it's all just a constant grift. It's nothing more than a scheme to collect just enough gullible Negroes to watch them that they can then go to try to leverage that to some white advertiser for some money or to a white political party like the Democrats. And you see what Roly-Poly did with that Black audience. He basically prostituted them so that he could get some money from the DNC. And Jemele's just so proud of that. You all spent your adult lives trying to empower the white media and to attract as many Black eyeballs to the white media as possible, and then you got the nerve to sit here and go, well, we ain't got one of our own because we ain't got enough white money. When you got the Black media working to create a space for our people, an intelligent space, a meaningful space, you then turn around and call us Russian bots and you attack us and you tell people to ignore us? Joy Reid and Shireen Mitchell were talking about Russians trying to imitate Black vernacular and lingo. Well, Joy Reid ought to know, as an immigrant, that's exactly what she's done. Imitate us, our words, our history, our terminology, our slang, our style, all in an effort to try to give herself some phony credibility to turn around and attack us. And that's the reason why we don't have, quote-unquote, one of our own, Jemele, because we got people like you undermining us constantly.
You know, over the last 24 to 48 hours, so many people have been like, why don't you, Roland, Don Lemon, naming the Avengers crew, or a ton of us. Why don't y'all all get together and do your own thing? It's like, we need money to do that.
She's sitting here rattling off these bootlicks names. These are not heroes. These are anti-heroes. It's like a doggone monster movie marathon, just villain after villain. It's horrible. Jemele Hill, Don Lemonade, Angela Rye with lettuce and tomatoes on the side. Why don't these clowns form their own network, huh? Yeah, I got an idea. They could call it the Island of Misfit Tools. And did she actually call themselves the Avengers? I mean, talk about trying to put yourself on a pedestal. These clowns are more like the Foolish Four. Forget about the Fantastic Four. They're the Foolish Four. Or maybe the Legion of Coons. But just because you morons run around in your underoos at home, that doesn't make you superheroes. Nobody looks at them as saving anybody. Bootlicks like Jemele Hill are the problem. Jemele Hill made her reputation, such as it is, attacking Black people in general and Black men in specific. She's trying to be some sort of online shea butter hero to those clowns, and she sees how far that got her. So I have to wonder, what kind of black audience does Jemele Hill want? We don't need any more sellouts like Roly-Poly Martin or Jemele Hill or Don Lemonade who are just trying to get money from the Democrats or some white corporation. We need black people who actually operate in our interest so that we can get black people in the driver's seat. We don't need any more of these self-serving sellouts trying to be cheerleaders for the DNC or the RNC. What we need are people who are going to be cheerleading for the FBA. Now, these black journalists, quote unquote, they did call Trump out, and that's fine. But the problem is these people are DNC shills. They only seem to have a problem with racism if it comes from people who they're not on the payroll of. If Trump had run as a Democrat, don't you know that Jemele Hill and Roly-Poly Martin and the others, they would have given him a clean bill of health? They would have been out there trying to help rehabilitate his image. They would have been trying to downplay the whole Central Park 5 death penalty request that he was making. They would have been trying to whitewash his past housing racist discrimination suits. They would have been sitting there doing everything they could to whitewash the man, or should I say blackwash him. And there's plenty of precedent for it. You have plenty of bootlicks tripping over themselves to try to rehabilitate the image of Mike Bloomberg, or better yet, Joe Biden. They conveniently forgot about all the decades of racist stuff that Joe Biden said, all the racist laws that he co-sponsored or even wrote, like the '94 crime bill, or Biden's law as he called it. People like Jemele Hill, did you see them trying to disrupt the Biden campaign and say, hey, we got to call out all this racism he's doing? Did they call that out? No, they never did. And they weren't going to. Yes, they are right to point out Trump's racism. The problem is they're more concerned about Trump's words than they were about Bill Clinton and Barack Obama and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's actions. And that's why people like Jemele Hill don't speak for us. They see themselves as having their own pathetic little boule club. Whenever you see some clown saying that they're part of this or that organization, you better start asking if they're with these so-called Black Greek frats and sororities, Divine Nine, whatever. And you'll find that these people are in that circle of boule, bootlick, butt kissers. The reason that Joy Reid is in the situation she's in is for the same reason the Democrats are in the fix they're in. Because they ignored their base, and they did it for decades. And then in the 1990s, were passing laws to attack black people, such as Biden's law. And then you had the white supremacist white lash against Obama's election. And what did he do about that? Nothing. The white right was clearly on the march, everything from front-loading the federal courts with Federalist Society flunkies to make sure that they could legislate from the bench, all the way to having states like Michigan totally neutralizing black voters with their so-called emergency manager laws. Blatant violations of the 15th Amendment, blatant violations of the Voting Rights Act and everything else. But what did the Democrats do about that under a so-called black president? Nothing. We're talking about the same Michigan where they had the Flint water poisoning crisis, which was the direct result of that emergency manager law. Who went to prison for that under the Obama administration? I can't think of anyone. Police and even non-black racist thugs on the street could murder black people with impunity. And what did Obama do? He came to town and sang a couple of bars of Al Green for Flint. That's what he did. He pretended to drink some water, which he didn't actually do, by the way. And then he told black people all these race killings, America's got problems. Yeah, Barack Obama's one of them. And then when Hillary Clinton ran, she didn't even bother to campaign in Michigan. She thought that she would get the black vote automatically. Why? Well, you gotta vote for me because the alternative would be worse, right? And this has been the pattern. Kamala Harris tried and failed to run from her past. Biden, on the other hand, had Simone Mamie Sanders as his front Negro crash dummy. She was on camera lying, claiming that Biden's law didn't cause mass incarceration. Why? That was the state's fault. You can't pin that on Joe Biden. And then when people pointed out, no, a provision in Biden's law gave billions of dollars to the states if they changed their laws to bring them into compliance with Biden's law. Make them the same as Biden's law, you get some federal cash. And what does Simone Sanders say to that? She said, well, okay, so the '94 crime bill's not perfect. And of course, you got these sorry sellouts like Jemele Hill, Joy Reid, and others who attack the black grassroots and attack the black media in specific full time. I personally called out Corinne Stank-Pierre on Twitter. She blocked me, of course, so the White House propagandists already know about us. And rather than change their ways so they could get black support, instead they doubled down and tripled down on lying. In yesterday morning's briefing, I showed you how Joy Reid lied about us in 2019 when Biden was running. She lied and said that anybody talking about reparations is part of a Russian disinformation campaign. Now, there's only a handful of people who are actually talking about reparations, the black media. It would have been very easy, don't you think, for her to say, you know what, I'm going to confront some of these so-called reparations advocates. Why didn't she do that? Because the entire purpose of what she was doing was to lie about us, to set us up to be mass deplatformed. This was not about actually proving anything. This wasn't about truth. It was about suppressing the truth. If we truly were nothing more than just Russian bots, then shouldn't it have been easy for her to say, hey, these people online, people like this Tariq Nasheed guy and Professor Black Truth, and people like Tari and Rain and Lisa Cabrera and others, these people are all Russian bots. Because you've had people like Tim Pool and others who have recently had their own scandals regarding where their money comes from. Shouldn't it have been easy for her to do the same thing to us? But she couldn't, because it was a lie. She platformed a liar like Shireen Mitchell, who said that if any black person is saying they want something for their vote, they're a Russian bot. You know, demanding something for your vote, that's democracy. Or so I was told. Voting is supposed to be about telling a candidate what they have to do to get your vote. They pledge to do it, and that's how you decide who to vote for. Now, if my issues and needs are being ignored, then I've got no reason to vote at all. That's democracy too, by the way. Democracy means rule of the people. It does not mean rule of the candidates, and it doesn't mean rule of their bootlicks either. It means rule of the people. And when the people decide that they're going to sit an election out, what they're doing is they're casting the most powerful ballot of all. They are casting a vote of no confidence in whoever happens to be in office. That's what put Trump back in the White House. Hell, that's what put him in the White House in the first place in 2016. Biden made all of those phony promises in 2020, from his White House Police Accountability Commission to his so-called Lift Every Voice plan, and all of it was lies. No sooner than he actually got declared the winner, he immediately said, I ain't doing none of that stuff. We gave him control of the White House, control of the Congress, and he took office and he used it to pursue legalization of illegal aliens and everything except for black people's concerns. He thought that that was going to be the Democrats' new base. That's what he was trying to do. And you had people like Rahm Emanuel ranting like a lunatic about so-called Biden Republicans that they were hoping to attract. By that, what he meant was largely white suburban women. That's what he really meant. Well, these Biden Republicans never materialized. All of these were just schemes employed by the Democrats for them to find a way to hold office without having to do anything that black people were demanding. They were trying to find an end run around us by putting together a new constituency, one of non-FBA voters. And when black voters called this out, you had garbage like Joy Reid and Don Lemon and Jemele Hill and others running interference for the Democrats. Why, you can't be making any demands. It's about democracy, don't you know? A democracy that we have never enjoyed. You can't criticize the Republicans for doing nothing for black voters and then attack black people when we demand the Democrats do things for us. The only consistent thing about all of these white media mouthpieces for both parties is that they say black people shouldn't get anything. And that's what caused the fall of both the Democrats and the left corner of the white media. But you know, in spite of Jemele Hill's nonsensical rantings and ravings, this woman spent over 30 minutes saying absolutely nothing. She did, however, miraculously manage to have a single moment of clarity with which she actually uttered something that I do agree with.
Whoever are your favorite journalists, you need to support them. Bottom line, because even like many of you are saying in the comments, we support you, which, we certainly are appreciate, or like in terms of starting your own. I don't know what Joy's plans are for next, but let's just say, as many of you suggested, that she create her own YouTube channel and kind of do what Don Lemon has done. The whole point is support your faves, support your favorite journalists.
She's got a point. I go for that. We do have to support our favorite journalists. And since she's talking about Joy Reid here, I think we should support her too. The exact same way that she supported us. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. One Good Ace, Michael Moore, Frederica Moore, Antonio Daniels, and Suleiman Alaji. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.